Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us all rejoice and be glad in it. I want to thank you as always for tuning in, for liking, for sharing, for all that you do, for caring, for the love, for the prayers. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the encouragement, everything. Your first time tuning in, this is the Sunday Morning Breakfast Podcast presented by Doing the Work of Jesus Ministries, where I am pastor. I want to thank you all so much. If you're your first time tuning in, let me also tell you, this is what I do every Sunday morning, 6 a.m. Been doing it since April 2023. And I don't ask for anything for it. Just like, just share. Let somebody know what's going on. So we're going to go right into the word now. The word for today comes from the book of First Corinthians, the 13th chapter and the 13th verse. I'm going to be reading to you from the New King James Version of the Bible. Pray for me, pray with me, you all. As you see, it's a different background than normal. I am out of town, and so I'm using a different setup. I have a different background, have everything set up differently than what I normally do. First Corinthians, the 13th chapter, 13th verse in the New King James Version of the Bible reads, "And now abide faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love." I want to talk to you with this topic in mind. Love is necessary. Love is necessary. Imagine going to a job that you do not love. You have absolutely no love for this job. You're just there for the check. You'll do a half-baked job. You'll complete the minimum requirements because you have no love for the job. You will violate as many rules as you possibly can and that you can get away with because you have no love for the job. You will not take pride in your work. Your attendance will show. You'll be one of those people that clock in as late as possible and clock out as early as possible, and you will be stressed. Love is necessary. Imagine a parent or parents raising a child or children, and they have no love for their child or children. The child will be neglected. The child will possibly be abused. The child will not be reared in a proper manner. The child will be seen as a paycheck. The child will feel unwanted, and the child will be seen as only being in the way. The child will sense these things. The child will rebel. The child will have issues as far as esteem and mentality. Love is necessary. Imagine a marriage where there is no love. Just two people who once were happy together, were a happy couple, now just simply coexisting in the same space. My brothers and sisters, being with someone that you do not love makes about as much sense as a white-mouthed mule jumping over an open fence. Abuse, infidelity, and misery will swirl around in that mix of mess that is created from being with someone you do not love. Eventually, the damage will become irreparable and the baggage will end up somewhere it does not belong. And the scabs that have become scars will make way for hesitation toward taking another chance at love and happiness. Love is necessary. Love is necessary. I locked in on this 13th verse of the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians as our text because I was taught that you should only use 5 verses as a text, 6 if necessary, to draw your text. Instead of reading the whole chapter, everything else outside of it is context. And the context of 1 Corinthians 13 is the entire chapter, verses 1 through 13 of that chapter, as well as verse 14 and 1. 1 Corinthians 14 and 1 says, "Let love be your highest goal." but you should also desire the special abilities the Spirit gives, especially the ability to prophesy. Let love be your highest goal. For most of the context of this message, Paul's point is that if one is going to minister to people, if one is going to serve people, if a person is going to have anything to do with people in any manner, love is necessary. Look at it in your private devotional time. Look at it in your study time. Verse 1-3 focus on ministry and serving. That's the focus, ministry and serving. All too often, there are people who are going into ministry for the wrong reasons. And we have too many people who are continuing in ministry for the wrong reasons. But don't get me wrong. A person can't commit to ministry for the right reason and serve no good to anybody because they are not doing it out of love. They're not doing it out of love. I'll give you an example. Take a fire and brimstone preacher. You have some people out here, some preachers out here who preach fire and brimstone. They do it. They do it to the point that they're bashing and battering people. But then you have someone who can preach the same fire and brimstone message, but they can preach it out of love. They can preach it in a corrective manner that draws the sinner to Christ rather than repels the sinner to Christ. They don't have to get up there and make a disclaimer, well, I'm just saying what the word says, and the word's like a two-edged sword. It either draws or repels. So if you're running from it, don't blame that on me. It's something you got to do. That is not love. Too many people, y'all, have gotten hurt. Too many people are getting hurt in church because of people who are serving but have no love. Serving without love is how we get the big eyes and the little U's. Serving without love is how we get people hurt. Serving with attitude and not altitude is how people get treated subserviently when they should be treated and served with dignity. They should be treated and served with love. In verses 4-8 of our context, Paul takes love beyond ministry, although the attitudes and altitudes he mentions can pertain to ministry. He goes beyond ministry. He talks about dealing with people, not just family, not just friends, but people we encounter every day. Anybody we should encounter in Walmart, at Target, walking down the street, or wherever we go, on the job, off the job, in traffic. He says love is patient. Love is kind. This ain't just talking about the mate that you're with or the mate you want to be with. Love is not jealous. Love is not arrogant. Love ain't funny acting. Love ain't selfish. Love is not hot-headed. Love doesn't glory in ill speak. Love glories in truth. Love is strong. Love is confident. Love is hopeful. Love is a survivor, and love never lets anyone down. Love is necessary. I need it. You need it. We all need it. My girl Diana Ross said, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's just the one thing that we got too little of, y'all. But Paul's bottom line is that love is necessary, and if you are not doing whatever it is that you're doing through love, out of love, and in love, you need to get somewhere and sit down. Every engagement we have with somebody, there ought to be love in it. Shouldn't be malice and hate. Everything ought to be love. Now, I must confess, y'all, as I was reading, as I was studying, as I was looking at the context, there were a couple things there were a couple scriptures, there were a few scriptures in here whose pertinence to the rest of the context I didn't get at first. First thing I didn't understand was how does verse 11 fit in on this discourse on love? When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought as a child. I reasoned as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. Paul, what does that have to do with love? Well, Paul wasn't talking about Paul was talking about his immaturity days, not his youth days. He was talking about his not readiness days, his not prepared days, the days when he thought he was doing right, but he was doing wrong. According to Paul's autobiography in Philippians 3, I know it's Philippians, y'all, but I was watching this video recently of a young lady. It was funny. She said, with all confidence, Philip and onions. So next time y'all go to read the Bible or y'all hear y'all, go ahead and laugh and say Philip and onions. But in Philippians 3, Paul met the standard. Paul told the road. Paul hold his road zealously, he says. Paul says, circumcised on the 8th day, of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, and Hebrew of Hebrews, as touching the law, a Pharisee, concerning zeal, persecuting the church, touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless. Paul say, I did my job to the letter. Everything I was supposed to do. If they were supposed to get locked up, I made sure they got locked up. They supposed to get persecuted. They supposed to be stoned, crucified, whatever. I made sure it happened. Paul did his job and he did it well, but no love was involved. He was working under obligation. He was working out of pride. He was working out of prestige. He was working out of power. Those things, that's what drove him before when he persecuted the church. But ever since his conversion, ever since he met Jesus on that Damascus road, Paul acted out of love. Love for Christ, love for himself, love for his fellow man, and love for the church that he used to persecute. The other thing I didn't get was the correlation of verses 9, 10, and 12. It just didn't, wasn't melding with me. Why would Paul place an allusion to heaven in the middle of this discussion on love? Paul, talk to me. Well, y'all, I believe Paul did this because the existential has to point to the eschatological, and the eschatological has to point to the existential. All right, Conde, what that mean? Well, we cannot preach what to do in the earth realm without telling how that leads to heaven. And we can't get up there preaching heaven without telling what that has to do on earth and how to get there. We have to tell the people how one reflects and affects the other. We can't preach pie in the sky, and we're not talking about the dirt on the earth. That's what I'm saying. So that's why Paul added it in there. Say, hey, let me tell you a little bit about heaven. Well, while I'm talking about what to do on earth, let me tell you a little bit about heaven, because you're not understanding this right now. You're seeing how it pertains to you now, but when you get there, you'll understand a little more. But y'all in the middle of looking at this, I thought about something. Let me get this parenthetically. I was in high school. Yeah, I went to high school. I won't brag and say, the greatest high school in the city of Chicago, Neil F. Simeon Vocational High School. Anyway, I was at the warehouse, by the way. Anyway, class of 95, in case you're interested. I had a gym teacher there, Miss Goldsmith, Mrs. Gloria Goldsmith. Well, Miss Goldsmith one day expressed to one of the students how she didn't like him. I won't call the student's name. I remember who it was. He is a Facebook friend. I won't call his name. He might remember, he might not. But she told him how she didn't like him. He told her, he said, well, you can't go to heaven not liking people. You always talking about heaven, he let her know. Well, Mrs. Goldsmith turned back to him and said, you don't have to like anybody to go to heaven. If you want to go to heaven, you got to love everybody. Let me say that again for those that missed it. You don't have to like anybody in order to go to heaven. But in order to go to heaven, you got to love everybody. My brothers and sisters, the only way to love to heaven is a longer route called love. Love is the only way to heaven because heaven was conceived out of love. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Love is the only way to heaven because heaven was designed in love. We used to sing a song that says, what love the Father had for me. The Father gave a Son, the Son gave his life, that we might have a right to the tree of life. What love? What love? What love? Love is the only way to heaven because heaven was built on love. Oh, you don't believe me? Let me tell you about heaven and how heaven was built on love. You see, I can only speak for myself. Some of y'all might be like me, but I'm going to speak for myself. I've had some rough roads down here on earth. I've had to go along, and I still got some rough roads and some tarnished paths. I don't want to say it like I'm finna walk on out of here today, y'all. But I've had some rough roads. I've had some hills to climb. I've had some tarnished paths to travel. I've had some pitfalls on my way. I've had some potholes and craters that I've had to struggle with and go around. I hit some of them and had a wreck. But out of his love, he paved the streets with gold up there so that my path is no longer rough. It's smooth. I don't have a path full of potholes and rocks and gravel. I don't have a path that is tarnished anymore. I don't know about you, but I've faced enough death in my life and time. I faced a lot of it since I was little. And keep facing, still facing. Go face it till I leave up out of here, y'all. I've had enough sorrow on this side of eternity to deal with. And I know I still got something I'm going to have to deal with in the future. But when I look at the book of Revelation, it tells me flowing out of the throne of God is a river of life. A river of life, eternity. I won't have to face that death anymore. No more dying, no more sorrow. Out of his love, y'all, they tell me that on either side of that river of life, there's a tree growing up and it comes up one side and it's so big that it can stretch across that whole river, the river that runs alongside the road. Yes. And that river, that tree growing over that river. See, I faced enough death and sorrow. And I've been dying since I've been born. But they tell me that that tree is the tree of life. And on that tree of life, there are leaves that are good for healing of the nations. See, I've had enough sickness. I've had enough pain. I don't know about you. Maybe you want some more, but I can't wait for the day that I can get there, walk down that street of gold, walk up to that tree that's reaching over across that river. Eat some of them leaves and some of that fruit and get me some healing and some eternal life. I can't wait, y'all. See, one of my glories, I'm in New Orleans right now. One of the things I love to do, y'all, is I love to go down and take a ferry across the Mississippi River. I go over to what's called the Algiers Point, where when the slaves came in, that's where they brought them. All that survived were sold. The others were tossed, and those who were too weak to be sold and that nobody wanted, they were tossed in the river. The spirits of the ancestors up on that river. And I love to go across there and just feel that water splash up on me. But ain't no feeling gonna be better than when I can go down to the river life and take a little bit and just throw it up on my face. Y'all, when everything around you has crumbled, I don't know if you've ever had everything around you to crumble right before you, but I have. And because of that, I know and I'm grateful and I'm thankful and I love him that out of his love, when I look in the book of Revelation, it tells me that the walls of that city are made of jasper, pure diamond. He made some walls that will never crumble before me, walls that will never have a crack in them, walls that will never erode nor decay because all this life, everything that I've had surround me has gone down. Nothing has stood solid, nothing but God. And when I even look, they say that there are foundations made out of 12 precious stones. But let me tell y'all something about that. Everything I've ever stood on has failed me. I've gone down some paths that have been shaken. I've gone down some paths that have had curves. I stood on some stuff, and the only thing I've ever stood on that didn't fail was Christ, the solid rock. But when I get to heaven, there are foundations to that city. So he guarantees me out of his love that because I walked on failure here, I can't help but walk on solid ground there. Out of his love, there is no sun or clouds, no rain, no snow. Weather's always perfect, no matter how it looks, because there is no weather, because there is no time. There is no time because there is no sun, there is no moon. Why? Because his glory is the light. His glory is the only light we need, and time has been done away. But y'all, let me tell you, two of the greatest things that I have to go through, that you have to go through, that we have to go through on earth, these two things, and I'm going to give you one last big one, and I'm going to walk out the door. Ain't no jobs over there, and I don't need no money. Ain't no time, so I ain't got to punch no clock. I ain't got to work for nothing because he provides everything. I don't need money, so I ain't got to worry about being broke. I ain't got to check that bank account. I ain't got to save for the trip. I ain't got to worry about my credit. Everything I need is right there and handed to me. If I want a gyro, I can walk right over there and get me a gyro, and I won't have to drop a penny on it. Whatever I want is on the menu out of his love, through his love and in his love. But let me tell y'all something. In my life at 47 right now, I've had some heartache. I've had some heartbreak. I've had some relationships go south on me. I had a marriage go south on me. But when I get to heaven, out of his love, I'm going to get married once more and again. But this time to the Lamb, and my heart won't be broken. I won't be disappointed. I won't be lied to, cheated on, or anything else, because God is love, and everything he does is out of love. And that's how we should be here on earth. Everything we do, everything we give to someone should be given out of, through, and with, and in love. Be blessed, my brothers. Be blessed, my sisters. I love you. God loves you. And ain't a dadgum thing you can do about it.